All right, everyone, here we go, continuing with the notes for Chapter 10, covering Sections 6 and 7 in your notes. And we're going to start talking about what it is to make your characters believable. Several tips and tricks here for you in this section. First off, find the music. Now, we're not asking you to sing, but we are asking you to consider some of the basic elements of music. Things like pitch and tempo, rhythm, volume, quality, intonation, because our voices do have a certain musicality to them. We all speak with various notes on the music scale. It doesn't sound like a song, but many of the things that we use in music also come into play when we're speaking. We speed things up, we slow things down, we get louder, we get softer. We do all those different things that are also used in music. So it is the music of your performance that will convey the subtlety and the nuance and the meaning behind the words, because it's not just for the sake of singing a song. It's to be able to convey the different connotations and emotions and feelings, the subtext, all of that, adding into what it is that we're saying. Find the music. Second, study other performers. Although most actors, I should say, use a lot of vocal variety and inflection, their performances sound real and genuine. They also move and express emotion physically as well as verbally. Listen to those that you think speak very well, those that do character voices very well. What is it about them that makes them excellent? What are things that you would like to be able to do well as well? And what are some things that perhaps maybe you can't do that you'd like to work on? Or things that you think you can do that they can't? Study, compare, and whatever you do, even if you pick up tips from other voice actors, find ways to make that technique your own so that you can create your own signature voice as a result. Beware of over-analysis. Analyzing or woodshedding a voiceover script is very much like reducing a play to its essential parts. The more information you can discover in the copy, the easier it will be to create a very believable performance. Now, see, I can talk for a living. But here's the point. The more that we know about what's going on in the story, the more that we know about our character and our role and the way that character interacts with other characters, the more that we are going to be able to immerse ourselves into that scene. And the more that we're going to be able to create a certain amount of authenticity, because we can give the correct emotions and reactions to the script that is intended to be able to portray various emotions, various reactions, the drama that's written into a script, all those things important. So do your woodshedding, analyze the script. But at the same time, you don't want to overanalyze. Overanalyzing a script can kill spontaneity and cause the voice actor to place too much focus on technique and thinking about what he or she is doing. Because if you're too focused on the mechanics, you kind of wind up overworking the mechanics to where it sounds unnatural and unreal. So to be effective, technique must become automatic, and it must occur without any conscious effort. It needs to become second nature, like it's something you do every day, all the time, and just kind of comes out. So a lot of these things in terms of how we interpret the ways that we analyze a script should really be able to just flow out of us once we determine the different approaches that we need to take. Next, stretch your boundaries and be willing to risk. Leave your inhibitions, personal judgments, and self-conscious attitudes outside the studio door. Don't be afraid of what other people think of you when you do the weird things that help you to be able to get the job done. Just go in, do the weird things, get the job done, and be proud of it. Go ahead, look weird. If it helps you get the job done, it's perfectly fine. Make every time the first time. This is something that is also going to be kind of a review for us here. You know, it can get very tiring if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again in multiple takes. But even if you're getting into double-digit takes, every time you do that take, it needs to sound as fresh and as real as if you were doing it for the first time. Just that it has to be done better, which is why we're doing multiple takes, because we're trying to improve on what we've already done. But make it sound fresh. Make it sound like it's the first time that you're reading those lines. Character has precedence over copy. Yet another review item for us here. Each character you create must have its own personality, mannerisms, thought processes, and speaking style. And provided your delivery is in character, it is perfectly acceptable to contract or uncontract words, to change a word or two around, to maybe drop the ending of a word to make it sound like it's from a certain dialect or region, something like that. Whatever it takes to make the character sound authentic, as long as you're able to get the words out in a way the audience is able to understand what you're saying. It's okay to do those sorts of things in order to keep your character intact. Character has precedence over copy. And finally, act professional. When you act like a pro, the people hiring you will believe that you are a pro and they will respect you. I mean, your first audience is going to be the people that hired you, so you need to please them. And if you go into a recording session and you're a jerk, or you have an attitude, or you're disagreeable, they're not going to be impressed with your performance, and you'll probably never get work with them again. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to take constructive criticism. You have to be as positive and agreeable as you possibly can be when you are working with others in the studio setting in order to get the job done and possibly get more work in the future. All right, let's talk now about some tips for performing different types of copy. And these are things that many of these are going to be a review of the things that we've done in this chapter. First off, understand as much as possible about the story and your character's role in that story before choosing the voice for that character. The more you know, the more that you can formulate what sort of voice you need to give to your particular character. At the same time, though, don't overanalyze your copy. Your delivery will become flat and uninteresting as a result because you're working too hard on the mechanics and the skill in and of itself instead of the portrayal of the emotion, the attitude, and the nuance. Third, rely on your instincts. Trust the director in your mind. More often than not, your first impression isn't going to be all that far off from the voice that you need to give to a character. You may have to do some trial and error and playing around a little bit, but play around with that first instinct as well, and you might be surprised at where you wind up going. Tell the story. Storytelling is always about relationships. Now, this is a really interesting thing here. Think about when you're telling a story to somebody and you're covering all the different aspects of what happened in the story, the elements of the events themselves, the surrounding features that cause different events to happen, the reactions of people as those things are happening. All those things help to build a story that people are enticed to want to listen to and follow. And because when you're telling a story, especially in a one-on-one sort of setting, there is that relational aspect where we're in this sort of intimate setting in which one person is telling another person this particular message. So we need to take advantage of that as best as we can. Use the advantage that audio is an intimate medium. Use the advantage of telling a story being somewhat kind of personal and relatable, and it's going to make your communication become that much more effective as a result. Make your character believable and unique by adding something of yourself. You've been happy, you've been sad, you've been angry, you've been jealous, you've been shocked, you've been scared. What goes through you when those things happen? Try applying it to your character. If it doesn't work, tweak it a little bit. But when you come at something from your own experience, that's the way that you can kind of add a little bit of yourself into your performances. Now, again, it's not all about you, but you do have to relate to things, at least in the beginning, from your own personal standpoint, and then adjust as necessary. Don't lose sight of the story, the drama, and the relationships between the characters and the conflict. Make sure you are paying attention to what's happening in the story and what is appropriate in terms of all the different feelings and emotions and words and the pitch and the volume and all those sort of things. Make sure they're appropriate for where you are in that time and space. Internalize the wants and needs of your character. What is the character's subtext in the things that you're saying? And what's the character feeling as he or she suppresses that subtext? Can you recreate that within yourself? For your first read through, go very slowly. Just read the words to get a sense of the story, the phrasing, and the complicated words. This is part of that script analysis part, the woodshedding aspect of your job, looking in and trying to find all the different nuances and idiosyncrasies and things you need to keep in mind in order to create an effective performance. Take your time. Just read the words. Make sure you get it, and then apply what you know in your gifts and skills to being able to give voice to that character as a result. Play it over the top as you rehearse. It's much easier to pull back than it is to push further out. Not only that, but when you over-exaggerate in the beginning and you are better able to remember those sort of things because they're outside of the norm, it's going to help you to remember when you need to say certain things in a certain way. Now, just as we gave you the advice to go over the top, at the same time, we also say underplay rather than overplay. Louder may not necessarily be better. So, while at the same time we're telling you to go over the top in your rehearsal and trying to find the right emotions and things like that, when it comes time to do the actual take, well, maybe play it down some. And not necessarily be as loud or as obnoxious. Try to make it a little more real to the situation. Keep your posture and stance consistent with the character and the choices you have made in regards to how your character stands, moves, and behaves. Be physical as much as possible. Now, make sure you're staying a consistent distance from the microphone as you do this, but move your hands, move your feet, move your torso, whatever is going to help you to be able to recreate what is happening physically with your character and to be able to give that proper voice as a result of what's happening with the character's body. Find the music in the copy. Speak quickly and quietly as you would if you were talking to someone in real conversation. Again, we're trying to make things sound as natural as we possibly can. Allow your character to speak the words. Learn how to get out of your own way. It's not about you. It's about the character, and it's the character's voice that we want to be featured in this performance. Finally, stay in the moment. Be in the moment of your script. Live in that script, in that time, and in that space. Pick up the cues that are in the script. interaction with other characters, the setting that you're in, the 6 W's and the H, if you remember those. Interact with your other performers. Relate with them. Don't let your lines become separated from those of the other performers. Make sure it fits and is congruent with everything else that is happening. And finally, listen to yourself, the director, and other performers, and respond appropriately. In other words, be listening and give an appropriate answer to what it is that is being called for. So there you go. There is Chapter 10. And we've come to that point where you're finishing up your notes, you're doing the study questions, you're preparing for our class session. Fill out the survey before coming into class. Answer the three questions that are there. They help to fuel our discussion whenever we get together. And as always, make sure you're monitoring Cougar Mail and Blackboard for any updates and changes to things that are happening with the class. And we will see you when we get together.